Hey everybody, ronarray here, and patch notes for new Path of Exile 2 League Dawn on the Hunt are finally available, and we got a lot of nerfs. So it's finally time to see how my NUKE Wave Monk build will survive such a barrage of changes. Spoiler, we're feeling fine even if some changes will be warranted. In this video, I'm going to cover changes and options we will currently have, and how it will affect the build in general. Going over all the changes and nerfs in the list. Let's go. So first off, let's talk about Invoker Ascendancy change by itself. The main change here is Lead Me Through Grace passive. Now provides 1 spirit for every 8 energy shield on equipped body armor, previously it's been 6, and 1 spirit for every 20 evasion rating on equipped body armor, it previously 15. So we're currently going to receive less spirit, but I don't think it's a problem at all. If we will open my current build, I have about 272 spirit with a pretty nice body armor. And 22 spirit is not allocated, so I have even too much spirit. But since they're going to delete Green Fist from the game completely, we're dropping Green Fist and receiving 30 more additional spirit. That way I will have 52 unallocated spirit. So even with the current change, we will have enough spirit to allocate all the skills that we need. And if we will get rid of Windancer, because it's currently heavily nerfed and will be not that important, especially in early game, we will have even more spirit and we should have enough even with pretty mediocre body armor. So I don't think it's a heavy nerf, and I think we are going to survive that part just fine. So moving forward with that is Green Fist is getting completely deleted from the game, so we will be unable to use it anymore. I think that's probably the biggest downside right now, because Green Fist been one of the best defensive auras that we had in the game. However, all builds are using Green Fist, so we're not really going to fall heavily behind, and there's a few tricks that we can utilize to make our life better without Green Fist. It's also saving us 30 spirit reservation, making our whole spirit situation much better. Before I will go deeper into explaining how we can compensate for Green Fist loss, I also want to mention Windancer. Windancer is going to get nerfed as well, but I still think it should be used, because it will be able to provide us with additional evasion, even if we are not playing dedicated evasion build. So generally, if you have enough spirit, I would probably keep it, but in early game, I think dropping it could be a decent option. Now let's talk about Green Fist and how we can compensate for it. I think the best answer for compensating for Green Fist should be just increasing energy shield amount, because if we will have more energy shield and more evade chance, it will be easier to survive in general. If before that, I think with the Green Fist we played just fine around 7k energy shield, I think right now for a proper endgame like Simulacrum push for example, it would be much better to have 10 or even 11k of energy shield. That way we are going to survive much better. I also think the overall importance of Aura's Resolve Ultimate Life Unique Flask is going higher, because right now it's kinda hard to regenerate energy shield, especially in a very bad situation with something just hitting you pretty heavily. So Aura's Resolve could be a very nice option for an end game, because you will be able to instantly recover your energy shield, and if you will click it like 3 times, it will recover about 3k, which is pretty nice. It also provides excess life recovery added as guard, which is pretty cool too. So, in my opinion, just investing a little more into the defenses will be pretty important without Green Fist, but there's not a lot of changes to Chaos Inoculation itself, and I'm absolutely sure that energy shield option is still probably going to be more tankier and easier to play in general. Now let's talk about another important part that currently nerfed, Heralds. So before that we've been using Herald of Thunder together with Herald of Ice, and that's been a very nice option to improve our clear. Right now Heralds cannot trigger other Heralds anymore, and that could be a pretty decent nerf for the all attack builds clear, because literally everybody been using Heralds from like bow builds to warrior builds. And I think the clear going to become a little slower overall, and it's not going to be a big issue. Why? Because we've been playing Simulacrum at my Nuke Wave build for a very long time. As you probably know, in Simulacrum, Heralds cannot properly trigger, so there is no chain reaction and your Heralds are not destroying monsters. But there have been no issues, we've been clearing Simulacrums alright. So if we've been clearing Simulacrums without Heralds before, I'm absolutely sure we will keep clearing them without issues in the future, even if interaction is nerfed. So if the interaction is nerfed, I think Herald of Thunder should still stay in the game and we should still use it. Because right now, Coming Calamity together with the previous nodes providing about 10% of DPS, and I think it's absolutely worth it. So I would probably keep Herald of Thunder. Herald of Ice is very questionable on the other hand. It's much harder to make it work. We can still try to run something like Pearl Seeker Ring right here. And if we can do that, like enemies chilled by your hits can be shattered and thought frozen, we will need to test it, if it will work just with Herald of Ice. And if it will, I think it will be a decent option to use Porsekin again. However, if Herald of Ice will not properly trigger with Porsekin after the patch, we can drop Herald of Ice from the build completely, because we don't need it anymore. That way we will just run Herald of Thunder to improve our bonuses. And I would probably use basic supports for it just to improve the damage a little and make sure it's shocking. So I've been using Innervate at Herald of Thunder before because I think it can provide a pretty decent bonus and it can still work with like long shot, for example. We can use Conduction and, for example, Magnitude of Shocks for Herald of Thunder as well, and I will change the build page accordingly and will probably cover it in the next update after the patches leave, because I will be able to test it in the game properly. But for now, the whole tactics that we are dropping Herald of Ice if Porsekin is not working, and just playing Herald of Thunder, exactly the same fashion as we did it in Simulacrum before. Now, let's talk about another big change, is pretty much Cast on Shock, which is currently going to gain only 1 energy per power of enemies you shock with hits from skills, instead of 2 energy. So it's going to lead to a less amount of triggers for Cast on Shock, but I don't think like it's a problem at all, because the biggest problem for the build before been when we are properly attacking a boss, we are triggering too many Cast on Shocks and our mana is going to go completely in the gutter. So right now, with that change, we are going to trigger Cast on Shock less often, and it's probably going to be even a better thing. The only change that I would apply right here is probably adding 1 more jewel here for energy retention, and that's pretty much is going to be it. That jewel is just energy retention by itself, because it will give us skill trigger by supported meta skills have 35% chance to refine half of their energy cost. And it's going to help us to go to the previous trigger rate or somehow close to it. So I don't really think that change to Cast on Shock is affecting us too heavily. We are still going to use IO Winter, Deceleration, Impetus and Inspiration. And the next step after changes for Cast on Shock, it's pretty much changes for Tempest Bell. So changes for Tempest Bell are pretty big and I want to address them like step by step. So generally, Tempest Bell Impact now deals more damage, so 490% of attack damage at the maximum level, and before it's been 300. However, now it requires 10 combos to use, previously it's been 4, and the bell will be destroyed after 10 hits instead of 19 before. So generally, our bell is going to get destroyed faster, and we will need to hit probably like 1 second more to activate that. I don't think those are the big issues, because we can generate combo very fast when we are using Crusader Tempest Flurry, and if the bell will be destroyed, we can just reuse it, we're still reusing it constantly. It will be a little more clunky, I think, at the bosses, but it's going to stay there. Also, Tempest Bell Shockwave no longer has deal 30% more damage per elemental elements or 60% physical damage converted to the corresponding damage type of each elemental element affecting the bell. Instead, now it has gains 30% of physical damage as extra damage of each type matching elemental elements on the bell, and 132% of attack damage, and previously it's been 200. So that's just nerfing that's just nerfing the bell itself in terms of damage. I think our damage on bosses is going to fall down, and instead of killing most of the pinnacle bosses in like 2-3 seconds at best, or you can just watch it on screen right now, we will probably kill them in about 6, maybe 10 seconds. I don't really think that change is going to be too bad, but we will need to retest that in-game before saying for sure. Also, Tempest Bell can now only trigger a shockwave every 250 milliseconds. This value is strict limit and not a cooldown, so it couldn't be lowered. That's a pretty decent issue, because before we've been triggering Bell very fast, and it can affect our damage very heavily, but that could be only tested in-game. However, if the damage will be even like 5 times worse, so instead of 3 seconds it will be 20 seconds, I still think we are going to be just fine. On top of it, we also cannot use multiple bells anymore, but I never even use them, and based on what we currently have, the only thing I use for bell has been Overabundance. Overabundance is still staying there, and you can click it just fine, but make sure that you will need more combos, so practice combo is very important right now to have additional combos built on hit for your Tempest Flurry. Now let's talk about changes to the unique items, and probably the biggest change right now is Hand of Wisdom in action significantly nerfed. So since Hand of Wisdom in action before provided a pretty decent amount of DPS, I think nerf for it could be a pretty decent issue. However, just re-picking pretty nice gloves with decent approach to the damage I think should be just fine. And there's a few reasons for it. So when we are re-picking Hand of Wisdom in action with rare gloves, as you can see I'm losing about 18% of DPS, very approximately. And you will need to get a gloves which should be rare with a pretty decent stats such as critical damage bonus, attack speed, level of all melee skills and lightning damage to attacks. However, we're receiving more than 1240 energy shell, so we are trading damage for survivability right here. In my opinion, it's a pretty decent trade, and we will also be able to balance stats a little more easier without Hands of Wisdom in action. So right now, I think pretty decent rare gloves will be able to just replace Hand of Wisdom in action just fine, while losing something between 15 and 18% of approximate damage. And I don't think that change is too bad, because Hand of Wisdom in action been very good, and right now they're going down, and that's fine. I honestly don't think there's a point to use them, because they literally been nerfed like 2 times, and I don't think they can provide enough damage right now to justify using them over a very good rare that we will be able to gain for pretty big price too, because I think Hand of Wisdom in action are still going to cost a significant amount of currency, especially if we're looking at very good corrupt. And there's a chance that there will be some particular uniques that we will like to use. However, right now I'm planning that PoE without any kind of uniques, because we still don't know how they will look. Also keep in mind that that approach is just for a very end game setup. I'm going to cover mid game setup earlier, and I think for mid game setup Hand of Wisdom in action still could be used if you just don't have good rares, and if they're going to be not really expensive without the corruption. Another big nerf, it's pretty much Ingenuity. So before, we've been able to receive about 30% of additional damage from Ingenuity, because it's been boosting our rings. Right now, I think at best we will be able to receive 30% of bonuses gained from equipped rings, also separately, so that will roll for like left ring and right ring. So all of that together is going to make Ingenuity is not real nice. As you can see, updated Ingenuity, given only 10% of DPS, and it will be much harder to literally build anything with that in mind. So right now we have 2 options. We can run normal belt with a lot of resistances and just mana on that. Fixing mana here is going to be pretty nice, and I think it's going to help us a lot. And the resistances, before we've been receiving them from rings, and if you will just roll the build like this, it will be pretty good. And the last part is again the Darkness Jewel, which is nerfed as well. Right now they reduce the radius from large to medium, but for our build it's not really changing a lot. If we will just pick again the Darkness and instead of large we will literally type medium in there, just save it as it is. As you can see, nothing changes, it becomes a little smaller, but all the bonuses are here and it's still providing 11% of DPS. I'm not especially sure if Against the Darkness currently worth using, because 11% of DPS is not that big compared to some particular other jewels which can provide up to 5% by themselves, but they also can get pretty nice amount of energy shield. So maybe just losing some DPS and replacing Against the Darkness with such jewel could be a great idea, especially if we can drop maximum energy shield as additional stun threshold and add even more bonuses for damage. But we will need to test that as well. If Against the Darkness is going to be crazy expensive again, I would probably recommend to avoid that. So that's what we currently have for the whole overview. I don't think a lot of stuff changed for us. So the main changes in that patch are trying to hit the clear speed and how comfortable it is to clear maps. Before that, a lot of builds been just using Heralds to improve their clear. But since we are playing a NUKE wave, we have a huge AoE right now. And just having that huge AoE will help us to clear just fine without Heralds, because we're just going to the same situation than we had in Simulacrum, and clear always been kinda alright with it. So I'm going to keep updating the build, and I'm also going to do a league starter video to recommend some particular league start approach for a Monk. Because I'm going to play Monk myself, even if I'm going to experiment with a few different builds and not just the NUKE wave. So stay tuned guys, Monk is staying strong and they're probably one of the most not nerfed classes together with the Deadeye. Have fun in the new league and ronarray out.